Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Jill with a Cocoa Daisy video, and what the design team is doing for one of the blog posts is accompanying it with videos that teach you, that we attempt to teach you a technique or some ideas about scrapbooking, some things we find helpful. And so what I wanted to do was work with one of the pages I made recently, a 12 by 12 page, and talk a little bit about some thinking that went into the page, even if it was intuitive for me. These are things that I think later, after I've made the page, I can kind of draw out and help you think about as you approach your own scrapbooking. So I want to talk about some things like mood and color and the use of black and white and line and scale and texture, and do this page to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a page about a kitten that my boyfriend Tim is fostering for his daughter, and my dog and I got to meet this kitten for the first time this past weekend. And so I wanted to tell that story, and the kind of story I think shapes the sort of mood you want to create on your scrapbook page. And for me, this is most definitely a playful page and a casual mood, and a kind of a story where I wanted to include some detailing, some details. And that all determines how much time you devote to journaling, how you do your journaling, and questions like that. The playful, casual quality, which you can see, this is a little bit of a chaotic page, and it's fitting because, of course, he has an adult cat. We brought a little cat into the mix, and then we brought a corgi, a dog, into the mix, and so there was quite a lot of chaos. And I think the page's energy and playfulness and even chaos works for me. And that's the other thing you want to do. You're not necessarily trying to win a prize with your page. You're trying to put it together in a way that makes you happy, and that captures the mood of the story that you want to tell. The other thing that was important to me was color. This is the cutest, most marmalade-y orange kitty. And my own dog, though these pictures don't really draw it out, is a similar kind of golden brown color. And it was just lucky happenstance that the Doodles and Dashes kit from Cocoa Daisy has these beautiful ochre colors, these kind of orangey yellow colors that are just perfect for these photos. And I knew I wanted to include a few photos because I wanted to include the kitty and make the kitty kind of the most prominent, best photos. But I also wanted to capture a picture of my dog looking at me as if to say, "Get me out of here," right? And then this photo was probably cropped a little bit more than I wanted, but it's of the kitty and the dog, approaching each other. And I could have made that more prominent, but I really wanted to feature Foster Brother, the title that I give it. I wanted to feature him and his little character. Okay, so what I did to I guess you would say reinforce or enhance the color is I used a little bit of watercolor on my page. And I love to do this in notebook spreads and on 12 by 12 pages. And don't be afraid of putting water on white cardstock. It's pretty good at handling it, especially because you're not going to use a lot. So I just put watercolor down, kind of rolled the brush around with plenty of water in the colors that matched the paper, that were kind of making me happy also with my photos. So I put some here on this edge, here on this edge, and a little bit, which you can hardly see, but it's still there underneath the layers here on the bottom edge. So, rule of threes, work in a triangle. And then the rest of the color kind of speaks for itself because the die cuts, of course, are coordinated with the papers, are coordinated with washies. I'm really partial to this kind of washi that Cocoa Daisy includes, which is like a swatch of the colors in the kit, because it really does help you draw it all together. Sometimes, obviously, with these kits, we might take out just a couple colors and not use all of them. With this kind of page, I wanted to use all the color, but I also really wanted some black and white. Not dark black and white, because I wanted to keep it light and playful. So this line drawing, the doodle paper, was perfect for what I wanted. And speaking of lines, so lately I've been interested in how lines work for me. These are cut on a paper cutter, so they're not absolutely like hand cut, super organic. But as you'll notice, there's a lot of irregularity in the width of the lines of paper. And I even used an edge punch here on this part to break up the line. So I like this kind of energy between straight lines and more organic irregularity. So that's what I did with the papers. You'll also see I took a die cut and extended this black and white line work with the die cut, which is black and white. So that's another way I brought that, the neutrals in with the other colors. The third way is stamping, and the stamps are doodles, which you can color in, you can stamp in color. In this case, for this layout, I decided to stamp them in black and white to, again, bring in those black and white lines. I guess the other thing that really reinforces that is my journaling, because the decision was to hand journal instead of to use typing. And I think you can see overall why that's appropriate, because it's more homespun, it's more playful, it fits my mood. It's also black and white because I used a black pen. It kind of picks up the line work, and handwriting is like drawing, is line work. It's very personal. So that worked for me. I guess the other thing besides color, the use of black and white, the use of lines, I want to talk a little bit about scale. I might have done this differently if I were to do it again and maybe make one picture a lot bigger, but I did vary the sizes of the photos. And in some ways, the story is really about Hazel like appealing to me and wondering how this is going to work out. So I really wanted that little, even though she's a distance from the camera, that little inquiring look. I also wanted to include the kitty's tail because it's so beautiful and so cool. So anyway, that's the inclusion of photos, but you can see they're all slightly different sizes. And so that helps kind of mix up the scale and keep the eye moving. And for this design, I decided to put them up toward the top of the layout and have everything else kind of support it. So I can say a few other things about scale, and that is you can see some of the die cuts feature these really large flowers, and others are quite small, as in the stamping, or the smaller little stickers of flowers. So there are flowers all around, but the scale of the flowers varies down to this tiniest of flower. And again, it kind of adds variety and interest, especially to a playful page where you want, a lot going on. Okay, so that gives you an idea of scale. The other thing that I think is probably the final thing to talk about and to emphasize is texture. You probably feel this when you make scrapbook pages. If you've got all the beautiful paper, you've got your photos, and you like the way it's looking, but it's like too flat. It's too much of the same texture, paper photos, and that's all. And that's why the kits are so wonderful in the opportunities they give to add chipboard, which right away adds a little dimension and a little different kind of texture from the sticker. Ribbon, which adds beautiful texture. And even just a tiny bit, I just stapled a little folded ribbon from the classified kit onto one of the stripes. Washi tape. Washi tape is paper, but it's just different. It gives you a different textural feel. Certainly stitching, and I did some machine stitching, again, to kind of reinforce what we were talking about with line, but also to add texture. So many of these things do both. Same thing with punching the edge. When you see it in person, it's a part that kind of sticks up and looks touchable. And stamping is different from paper. It's flat, but it gives a visual change in texture. The stickers used with the paper are texturally different. You can feel and see that. They also reinforce what I talked about earlier with scale, with using like a large strip and then a tiny little strip that you'd find like in the sticker kit. Okay, and I could say more about visual triangles and the texture of the enamel dots, but I think you can see how that works. I've probably talked about that before. Like I like to put a little confetti in the same color to create triangles, like to move the eye around the photos. The little heart chipboards add to that small confetti embellishing. And the same thing down here, so that the glitter dots sort of bracket the journaling. And you'll notice the journaling has arrows and moves around, and you kind of have to work to read it. And that's I would not ordinarily be quite that chaotic on a page, but as I said, I went with the mood, I went with the feel of the story I was telling, and it ended up making me happy. So I guess the only other thing to call attention to is like some of these little phrase stickers can be perfect for your story. Like this one, everything was fine until ... And that's really the way it went with these animals. They seemed to be doing okay, and then one little thing happened that set them off, and you know, the dog was chasing the cat. And so this includes a lot, but it really hopefully gives you an idea of how to use some of the different elements in the really beautiful Doodles and Dashes kit, the September kit from Coco Daisy. Thanks for joining me. Hope you learned something that you can take away and use in your own scrapbooking.